Hello, and welcome back to Inside Picard, Episode 8 from the creators of Warped, the completely unnecessary Star Trek podcast. My name is Matt.
I'm Sean.
And I'm Min Win.
And we are here to recap Episode 8 of Star Trek Picard, Broken Pieces. How's it going, you guys? What's going on?
Doing well.
It's awesome. Yeah.
Man.
We've only got 2 more of these episodes apart from 8, right?
Yeah,
It's 8, 9, 10?
8, 9, 10.
Yep,
And this one, I liked this one a lot.
Oh,
Sean.
this one, they moved a lot of story. It
Yeah.
was really, really good.
It's such an example of how TV works these days. Like these short seasoned TV shows. Every show is
movies.
like now, where the first 4 episodes are kind of slow, and then 5 and 6 and 7 it starts to pick up, and then 8, 9, and 10 are just like a rush to the finish.
Yep.
Like you can just tell that they're like, okay, here we go. And I wish that they would spend a little more time. I wish they would spread this shit out a little bit more, but that's not how they do it on television.
Yeah, but the other thing is, like, these are the times when the shit that they did before start to pay off, and that's the enjoyable part.
We did get quite a bit of payoff in this episode in terms of people learning things and people finally figuring shit out, and a lot of that.
Min has muted himself for some reason.
Min muted himself.
Eating.
Oh, he's back. What are you eating, Min?
Sandwich. Mediterranean vegetarian sandwich. It's good.
So what's let me
Grilled vegetables,
tomatoes,
some hummus.
I'm trying to imagine.
Ciabatta roll.
Explain this.
Yeah.
Define the sandwich to me, Min.
Some roasted veggies, some tomatoes, like you said, roasted squash,
Like eggplant?
roasted eggplant. Yes, yes.
Sounds good.
Maybe some mushrooms in there, roasted mushrooms,
Any
arugula.
leafy vegetables?
Yeah,
kale?
arugula. I love arugula. You know, I'm really turning on to arugula nowadays, and some pickled onions, which really nice. That's a nice zing to it.
Everybody loves arugula.
Have you tried to
insert the jingle?
Don't do it, Jake.
Everybody
you don't have
loves
to do
arugula.
That was hysterical in episode 6. I laughed my ass off so much.
Yeah.
Everybody
loves
Raffy. Great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have a love.
Doing great work, Jacob. Doing great work.
I'm not just saying that he's great because he's
listening.
technically listening to this right now. As we're recording this, we are currently experiencing the coronavirus lockdown, or whatever you want to call it. Social distance is what they're calling. How has that affected? It has not affected my life at all because I am unemployed, so I'm home all the time.
You're already socially distanced.
I'm socially distanced by definition. Has it affected either of your lives in any way? Sean, have any of the soccer games or anything like that?
All sports.
That's a good question.
All sports have been canceled through the end of March.
Oh
Today, my kids' school is closed now till the end of March.
Oh, so the kids are home. Oh,
so
who's watching the kids?
It's going to be a cavalcade of people. I think my in-laws are going to take the brunt of it. I'm hoping to be able to maybe work part-time for the next few weeks if the job will let me.
I mean, your job is mostly talking on the phone to people, right? You could work from
exactly and emailing and things like that. I could work from home, so I'm hoping that that's going to be an option. They're going to let me know.
How long are your kids off from school for?
At this point in time, officially through the end of March. So,
oh my God! Wow!
And today is Friday. Today is Friday, March 13th. So we're talking like 2 weeks.
Oh my God! Your kids are like having the time of their lives right now.
Yeah, except that they're going to have to do virtual school, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, they're pretty excited about it. I was like, you guys at day 2, you're going to be wishing for school again.
Yeah, they're going to get bored pretty quick, I would imagine, because your kids are very active.
Right.
Like, if it had been me when I was a kid, I was a bookish kid. So, and I was an only child, so I was used to being alone a lot of the time. Anyway, so I would have been pretty happy to just sort of hang out and read books and for a couple of weeks. But your kids are a lot more energetic than I was, so I can imagine that that's going to be a little frustrating.
We'll see
for that,
right?
Yeah.
But we're not here to talk about the future. We're here to talk about inside Picard. We're here to talk about episode 8 of Star Trek Picard, Broken Pieces. Let's drag this train back onto the track.
All right.
Written by Michael Chabon, directed by Maja. I don't know how to pronounce her first name. Maya Vervilo. Yep. Min, how does every episode of this television show begin?
Dream flash dream.
Flash dream.
It's right. It's a flash dream.
Flashback.
It's a flashback.
And this flashback is full of information.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in this flashback. So we're on a weird planet, and there you see a bunch of Romulan women standing around in a circle, and they're standing around this. They're standing around this sort of like circular thing in the middle, and they're all standing around it. There's like
light.
There's like 10 of them. Yeah, there's light coming out of it. And someone else is sort of walking around talking to these women, and she tells them, you have chosen this like sacred path, and we are the Zhat Vash. Remember the Zhat Vash, man?
Yeah, those nuns, those badass nuns.
No. That's the Malat.
Those are the co-op.
Oh,
God damn it! You failed the test.
Damn it! There are too many secrets to say.
The super secret, double secret.
Oh, that's
the double secret that you want.
Not the Talvash.
Not the Tal Shar.
I'm losing it. I'm all over the place.
God damn it, man! Keep up.
You've been doing so well for 8 weeks now. Don't lose
where
the
I
plot.
fall apart.
Don't lose it right at the end.
Started drinking wine and it all fell apart.
Yeah, don't fall apart at the end. Go back to beer. You were doing so much better.
Oh, what?
So anyway, she's talking to these women and she's like, "Look, I'm about to show you something." And they call it the admonition. The admonition. She's like, I'm gonna show you something, and it's gonna drive some of you insane. But those of you who survive will become members of the Zhat Vash. And you, the survivors, will join the Zhat Vash, and together we are going to save the universe.
Wow.
From the synthetics.
And we see, as she's delivering this sort of monologue, we see that 2 of the people in the group, one of them is Narissa, who is the evil Romulan sister.
The sister.
Of Narek.
Yep.
And the other one, and this is a callback from a few episodes ago, is Ramda. Ramda was the Romulan who was on the Borg cube, who got deborgified, but had kind of gone insane. So, Min, there was a scene where Soji and Hugh went to see the Romulans in their like insane asylum cell. It was the One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest scene.
Yes.
They went into this cell and there were a bunch of Romulans and they were all acting weird. And Soji went over and talked to this one Romulan named Ramda, who had the tarot cards, who was sort of like saying weird, like predicting the future type shit. And we see in this scene that Ramda is one of the women who is standing in this circle along with Narissa and the others. Then we see that the woman who is delivering this monologue, who is telling them what's about to happen. Can you guess who that might be? It's somebody we know.
The character has been introduced.
It's not the nun. No. It's Picard's helper back at the vineyard. No.
Not Laris.
More evil than that.
Commander O.
There you go.
Oh, Commodore O. Yay.
Yep.
So remember, there had been some speculation about whether Commodore O was Vulcan or Romulan. And last week when we talked in episode 7, I said we were talking about whether I said she must be Vulcan because Vulcans
mind melds with Jurati.
And we didn't know if Romulans were able to mind meld or whatever. Anyway, we see that it's Commodore O, and she's been the one telling these women, you're about to have a vision, and it's going to drive some of you crazy, and the rest of you will become the Zhat Vash. So all of these women turn around. They've been facing away from this circle. They turn around, and now they're facing inward into the circle. And they put their hands on the railing of this glowing circle. And as soon as they put their hands on it, they have visions, horrific visions.
Similar to the one that Commodore O made Jurati see when she mind melded with her.
Exactly. They see planets being destroyed. They see synthetics, causing all kinds of chaos. It's this horrifying vision. And when the vision is over, all of the women, well, not all, most of the women in the circle immediately kill themselves.
Like one pulls out a phaser and just blasts
herself in the
head. People are like gouging their eyes out and scratching their face off. Like,
oh, jeez.
They're all gone nuts, except for...
It's gross. Like,
Narissa.
It's really like one girl like bashes her head against a rock.
Yeah.
Like,
it's very
these visions have driven these women suicidally insane.
Wow, these visions must have been like really like connected to them, because I've seen I haven't seen it, but I've heard about like Goatsy and like two girls, one cup, and I know people have seen that, but they haven't killed themselves over that. It must have been worse than that, right?
It's worse than that, man.
It's
way worse than that.
Worse than Goatsy.
I don't know. Goatsy sounds horrible. Goatsy sounds like the worst thing you could ever want to see.
It's imagine something that's even two girls.
I can't imagine something worse than that. It's.
Oh my God. Have you seen that video where Kermit watches two girls?
So funny.
Okay, so it's worse than that, man. No, it's so bad. It's so bad that it.
The worst thing you've seen on the internet, then multiply it by 10.
Because they're not just seeing it, man. They're experiencing it.
Yeah.
Right. They're feeling
like it's happening to them right then and there.
Yeah. So they all kill themselves. There's only 2 left to survive. One of them is Narissa, our evil Romulan sister.
Who's fine. She's
fine. And Commodore O is like, you're the one. I knew that a couple of you might survive, and it turns out it's you. And then they're like, oh wait, somebody else survived, and it's Ramda, the Romulan from the Borg cube. And they go over, but she's gone. She has not killed herself, but she's
still gone crazy,
deeply insane. Yeah. She's like pulling her own hair out, like she's gone crazy. But they're like, well, she lived too, so I guess she gets to come along. Did I miss anything in that? Does she
call her aunt?
Scene, she does. She calls her auntie.
So Ramda, Narissa is their aunt.
Yeah, Narissa goes over to Ramda and calls her auntie and says, "We're gonna get you out of here. You're coming with us."
Do you think that was a term of endearment, or was that? Are they?
You'll find out.
Oh, bump.
So then it cuts to the Borg cube.
Yep.
And it's now Narissa with Ramda there. Ramda's in like a hospital bed, in a coma of some kind, and she's sort of talking to her and saying, you were crazy before. You were always crazy. Turning you into a Borg didn't turn you crazy.
She's trying to reconnect with Ramda.
Well, she's saying goodbye, essentially. I think.
So the last time we saw Ramda in the present timeline was when she went crazy in the insane asylum and tried to kill herself, and Soji stopped her. So now she's in some kind of weird coma or whatever. Sean was right. And Narissa is doing a lot of exposition, heavy lifting in this scene. Because she's literally like
monologue.
She's literally like staring at an unconscious woman delivering a monologue.
Yeah.
And she's like, you should never have adopted us when Narek and my parents were killed. So you're like, okay, that's why she calls her aunt. Got it. And so she's like, you were always crazy, and seeing the visions of the future just made you even more crazy. And somehow you're so crazy that you managed to kill this entire Borg cube. Because she's like, your despair broke this Borg cube. She's like, they never should have assimilated you because they didn't know what they were getting when they assimilated you.
She was like their virus.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like she was so crazy that she caused all the Borg to just fucking like malfunction.
Yeah.
And then Narissa gets a beeper on her beep, and she's like, did you find Elnor? Because the last time we saw Elnor,
she calls him the freak.
Yeah. Oh. The last time we saw Elnor, he was murdering motherfucker Romulans on the Borg cube, right? And he had pushed that little button to call the Fenris Rangers.
Yeah, the Fenris
which
Rangers.
I've now figured out where he is and why that was there. Because last week when we talked, I was like, where did that little thing even come from? Did you figure it out, Sean?
No.
He's in Hugh's office because he was hiding under a desk the last time we saw him. And then this week, when Narissa talks to her dudes, they're like, he's hiding in the former director's office, which is Hugh's old office.
Right.
So Seven gave that beeper to Hugh. It's Hugh's beeper that Elnor uses.
Yeah. Okay.
To call, which is why when she shows up, spoiler alert, man.
She says,
she shows up like, where's Hugh? So Elnor, they're like, we've tracked him to Hugh's office. And she's like, well, let's go kill him. So a bunch of Romulans come in. They throw a like flash bomb to like blind him. But even blinded, Elnor is a badass. Like, he's still kind of kicking their asses, even though he's like blind.
Zatoichi, the blind swordsman.
But eventually, yeah, it is a little bit like that.
They overwhelm
him because there's just too many of them. And they sort of get him down on the floor and they handcuff him.
And then they rip his shirt off.
And then
yeah, okay. You and I are on the same page. You and I, man.
Come on, guys.
Sure, you're not a little bit gay. Like,
let's revisit that at some other point in time.
Okay, we can talk about it on Sunday.
About that
I'm not gonna forget.
Okay. Oh God, I'm gonna really have to bring a lot of weed to help my.
You think you're gonna make me forget? You think you're gonna make me get so high that I forget?
Possibly.
That's the theory, I think.
I've thought it for about 20 years, so you're gonna need a lot of weed.
Okay.
I like to see that much weed. Let's do it.
Party on Sunday.
Bring it all, man.
Anyway, they get Elnor down onto the ground and they handcuff him, and you're like, uh-oh, Elnor's in trouble. But then, pew, 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 pew. They all get phasered, and 7 of 9 comes in because she's gotten the message from the beeper. Here comes 7 of 9, blowing up motherfuckers, just like she was the last time we saw her when she was in the bar.
Bye-bye.
She comes in. She kills all the evil Romulans. She looks at Elnor and she's like, "Where's Hugh?" Because he pushed Hugh's like "come save me" button. And Elnor just like hugs her. Like he's so happy to see her. He just grabs her and hugs her. How great is Elnor, Sean?
He's so good.
Isn't he the most lovable
I know.
elf you've ever met in your entire life?
I love it. Like, he's so sweet and badass, and he's great. I love it.
Now I want to watch it.
He is genuine and sweet and kind.
I will say,
slice your head off. I mean, he's perfect.
I'm not totally sold on any of the bad guys yet. Like
Narissa or
character development, I don't think is all that there. But the development of most of the good guys are great. Like Elnor is great, Captain Rios is great, Rafi is great.
I want Elnor. I'm really hoping that as we go into season 2 of this show,
the adventures of John Luke and Elnor.
Well, I want Elnor to stick around. I want Rios to stick around. I want Rafi to stick around. I'm okay if Girardi's storyline
she's fine.
I like her a lot, and I love Alison Pill as an actress, but I feel like her storyline is
done.
So connected to this season that they'll wrap her up. Like
Jacob's going to be so sad.
I think they should next season should just be Jean-Luc, Rafi, Rios, and Elnor going around the galaxy like the Galaxy 18.
Yeah.
I would watch that show.
So Seven goes, "What the hell is even happening on this?" She's like, "Where's Hugh?" And he hugs her and he's like, "I'm so happy to see her." And she's like, Fine. What is going on this cube? And then they go to credits, right? That's the opening.
That's the opening credits. Yep.
They come back from the opening credits and it's Picard and Soji are on the transporter. They've been beamed up from Nepenthe, where they were hanging out with Riker and Troy. And as soon as Captain Rios sees Soji, he freaks out.
Yeah, he
recognizes her, and he
goes almost catatonic. Everything slows down, and he can't, the volume of everybody speaking is really low. He's totally just lost it when he sees her.
It's completely freaked her out. And Picard's like, hey,
we're going here. We got to go. We got to go.
It's like, hey, Picard is not paying attention because Picard should have been like, what's that all about? But instead he's just like, hey, pay attention to me. And he's like, I need you to set up a connection to Starfleet because we're in over our heads. We need to talk to Starfleet Command. And finally, he kind of snaps Rios out of it. And he's like, look, I need to talk to Starfleet and I need you to get us to Deep Space 12.
Well, basically.
I never thought about there being other deep spaces, but it makes a lot of sense.
You think they started with 9?
I don't know. I never even thought about it. I'm like, oh, yeah, Deep Space
Nine. They started and finished with 9.
Yeah. Well,
they said, let's make a space station and call it Deep Space 9.
Well, there was Apollo 13.
Yeah, well, there were 12 more before it, too.
Before that, man.
You're right. It makes a lot of sense.
Apollo 11, the one that actually landed on the moon.
So many more before that.
Deep Space 12.
Yeah.
Deep Space 12.
They're going to Deep Space 12. And so Rios is freaked out, and he's like,
all right, then of course Deep Space 12.
Fine, I'll get you to Deep Space 12.
And then I'm done. After I get you there, I'm out.
This is another everybody hates Picard moment. Jake, put the jingle in.
Everybody hates Jean-Luc Picard.
Because first Rios is all weird and creepy and it's just fine. And then he walks out. And then Picard tries to introduce Soji to Rafi and Rafi is not having it because Rafi is just like, first of all, a lot's happened while you were down hanging out eating pizza with your friend. She's like, first of all,
handmade.
You were chased by a Romulan. Then it turned out that your buddy, Dr. Gerard, was a spy, and she's the reason that they were able to track us all this way. And she's in a coma. And
she killed Maddox.
And she killed Bruce Maddox.
But they don't know that.
They figured it out. Well, Picard was talking to Riker and Troy, and they figured it out.
Oh, wow.
And she's like, and by the way, I don't trust this new person you've brought onto the ship. Because so far, every single person you've brought onto this ship has been a fucking nightmare. Like, not good choices so far. JL.
Yeah.
I mean, that's sort of pot calling the kettle black there a little bit.
Well, yeah, because she's a whole mess too. But she pulls a gun. Picard stands in front of Soji and is like, if you're gonna kill her, you have to kill me too. Rafi puts the gun down. Picard's like, look, I don't know what's going on, but we'll figure it out.
I'm gonna take this one to a room.
I'm gonna take this girl and find her a place to like sleep, and then we'll talk.
Wow, what a sort of like a pot that's been stirred up there.
Yeah,
this is an excellent episode, right, Sean? Don't you?
Yes,
don't you?
Absolutely. Yep.
Great episode.
Riveting. Like I stopped about. My notes are going to get real sparse at the end because I stopped writing.
You were just so into it?
I was watching the show so much.
Oh, that's a good sign.
Yep.
I was not able to watch it last night because usually what I've been doing is watching it on Thursday and then watching it again on Friday so that I can take my notes on Friday to do this show. I wasn't able to do that last night. So I watched it twice today in a row. Wow. I watched it and then I watched it again. And then the second time I took my notes. And it was actually great because it turns out if you watch a show and then watch it immediately again on CBS All Access, they don't make you watch the commercials the second time. I was like, oh, I don't have to watch the commercials this time. This is great. So my notes now say EMH Rafi Picard.
Yeah, so that
they're standing around with Girardi's in a coma because she took the thing to get rid of the thing.
The tracker.
Rafi says to Picard, we know that she had a tracker in her. And Picard's like, how do you know? And what do you mean we? And then we cut to sickbay. And the hologram is there that we saw Girardi turn off when she was killing Maddox. And he's telling Picard, Bruce Maddox was not he was not turned off.
She turned off the machine that was saving him. He could have been saved. Yeah,
he's like, he could have survived. She turned me off, and then she turned off the life support. It was flat out murder. There's no getting around it. And Picard's like, well, I don't know. I don't have an explanation for this, but I think that she's a good person. And Rafi's like, you think she's a good person? What the fuck? We just proved to you that she killed Bruce Maddox. Picard's like, well, she's been under a lot of stress. And Rafi, are you kidding me?
It does sound a little apologist, you know?
Yeah.
So Rafi leaves. Rafi's like, I'm going to go talk to Rios because I can't talk. He's not happy. And then Picard's like, well, I have to talk to Starfleet because I need their help. So we cut to a scene of Picard in his chateau hologram, right? And he's sitting behind his little desk, and it looks like they're in France. And he's talking to the head of Starfleet, Admiral Clancy.
That we met earlier, who told him that he had the fucking hubris.
The fucking hubris, right? From way back in episode 2. When he first went to Starfleet to ask for help, He had the scene with the admiral and who told him to fuck off. So it's the same actress, but now they're talking via hologram. So it looks like they're together in the room. And he's telling her, he's a little bit smug because he's a little bit like, hey, turns out I was right.
I was right. I told you that there was Romulans. They were doing something with the synthetics. And he's like, I need help. You need to send a battalion of ships to Deep Space 12, and we need to go find this planet and protect these synthetics. And she's like, well, she sort of hims and haws, and then he's like, no, we got to do this. These are people. And she's like, shut up. I'm sending the fucking ships. Finally. And then she's like, I'm out. And then he does a little happy dance.
She keeps trying to, he's delivering a very Picardy monologue, and she keeps trying to interrupt him to tell him,
okay,
yes, we've agreed.
Yes, I'll do it.
We're sending you the ships. But every time she tries to interrupt him, he slaps her back down and is like, no, Admiral Clancy, you must listen to me. We have to go.
I will be heard.
And she's like, Jean-Luc, and he's like, no, God damn it, you're gonna sit there and listen to me. And finally she gets sick of it, and she's like, listen, Admiral Picard, with all due respect, shut the fuck up. That's her actual line. I kept track of how I kept track of how many F-bombs there are in this episode.
Drop the F-bomb?
Oh, they've done it times already. There are 3 in this episode alone.
Wow.
But she tells him, because she's the one who tells him, you have fucking hubris coming in here and trying to talk to me way back into episode 2. Anyway, it's a funny little scene because she's just like, we get it.
We're on the same side here. We're sending the ships. We don't need to have this conversation anymore.
And then she's like, fine, I can't talk to you anymore. Clancy out. And she's just like, beams out or whatever. she's so annoying. He does a little happy dance.
Picard does a little cheer. Yeah, it's funny.
I love her personality. She's sort of like rough and tumble, like she's one of the boys. She's heard it all. She's ready to.
She's a great character, and she's clearly one of the good guys. Oh, sure. Because there's this whole conspiracy, Starfleet conspiracy thing going on.
Yeah.
You have to wonder who are the good ones and who are the not good ones.
Right.
And
we've already had one double cross with Girardi, so you're expecting more. And
I think that you can.
I don't like the double cross.
I think
makes
you can tell.
Paranoid as a watcher.
Yeah, I know you don't like double crosses,
but it's inevitable, Sean.
Or you don't like that.
I don't, because it makes me nervous because I never know who to trust when I'm watching a show.
Did you ever watch 24 with Kiefer Sutherland? Oh, yeah, you would have hated that.
Oh, you should never ever watch Alias.
Oh, Alias drove me nuts. I watched that whole series. It drove me nuts because it was like
every single person on that show changed their minds about which side they were on constantly.
It was constant. Yeah, no, it drove me nuts.
Anyway, it seems like Admiral Clancy.
I agree.
Despite her problems with Picard, it seems like he's trying to do the right thing.
In the first time that he went to see her, we kind of all agreed with her opinion.
She was right. We agreed.
There were hard decisions that had to be made. It wasn't just about you and what you thought was right. There's a lot of people involved. There's other races in this Federation. Like, we couldn't just decide, break down the Federation because of you.
Yes, she made excellent points back then, and now she clearly is agreeing with Picard, even though she's still like, ugh, you're such a mansplainer. She's like, we get it. Stop talking. She literally tells him to shut the fuck up. She's like, We
awesome.
get it.
So
We're sending the ships.
Yeah.
We don't need you to keep asking. We're sending them.
That's such an interesting writing choice, because like you're coming into this because you love Picard, you want to see more Picard, and I would imagine, like, going into it would be a lot of fan service, and you want to see how people love Picard as well, and how he's sort of being highlighted, but here, yeah, and in other episodes too, there's been a lot of putting Picard in his place.
Oh yeah, well, we've done. Play the jingle. Play the jingle.
Jacob. It's a lot of jingling in this episode.
I think that it's more that it's showing that Picard is not infallible. Right?
He's human, sure. Yeah.
And he's human, and he makes mistakes. And especially now that he's old, he's really old in the show. He's like 109 in the timeline of the show.
Yeah.
So he's an old man, and he's dealing with his regrets and his mistakes. But even back in the old show, they never portrayed Picard as perfect. Yeah. Like, he was always capable of making mistakes and growing as a person. That's one of the great joys, actually, of The Next Generation, is that watching his character change over the course of that 7 years, he's a very different person at the end of that show than he is in Encounter at Farpoint.
It'll be interesting to watch it then, because when I originally watched it, I was so young, and I only watched it sporadically, so I never really saw any character arc or growth from that.
It's really subtle, and it's not. They never sort of explicitly call it out. But over the course of those 7 years, those writers realized we have this amazing actor in Patrick Stewart. So instead of portraying him as this hard ass Starfleet guy, which
like
is how
Kirk
portrayed him at the beginning, they started introducing all of these layers. So over the course of those years, Picard becomes this much more interesting, much more lovable human person. And that's all Patrick Stewart and the writers doing a good job.
Agreed. I mean, I think in general, that show, you compare it to the original series, like they made a lot more of an attempt to evolve all the characters to some extent. Like, you can tell that they made it. But of course, 7 years versus 3 years, you can do it. Of course, and also back then, they didn't care about evolving characters. It was just a different time in TV. So so it is, for us, I think for those of us who sort of grew up in the, TV time that we grew up in, it is more interesting than the original series, because the characters do evolve, and that's just more interesting to watch than just the same characters every time reacting to the situation the exact same way every single time.
It is kind of an interesting thought experiment to imagine. Excuse me. I'm drinking vodka soda, so I'm the bubbles are making
the carbonation.
The bubbles are making me a little hiccupy. It's kind of funny to imagine what old school Star Trek would have been like if it had run 7 years. Like, if that show had run 7 years, would they have developed those characters?
I feel not. Because that was also a different time period back then. The writing was
a different time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't the style back then.
I mean, you look at like Gunsmoke or something like that. Gunsmoke ran for like 15 seasons, and it was the same all the time.
Yeah. People probably wanted familiarity and something that they knew would be the same.
Law and Order. It was Law and Order.
There you go. Yeah.
I mean, you'd like to think they would have, because I I kind of think that maybe they would have, at least on some level, to the level
because they were so progressive compared
to the level that they were capable of in 1969. I think they would have.
Certainly,
because if you look at
the Trinity,
if you look at 66, if you look at season 1 versus season 3, they have clearly done some work on those characters. I mean, it's not to the level that we would expect in modern TV, but they've definitely done it. So maybe they would have in their own small way.
Yeah.
It would have been mostly the Trinity, like the Bones, Spock, Kirk. I don't think the peripheral characters would have gotten much. Whereas in Next Generation, like all of the characters have their sort of evolution.
But I don't know if that's true, because that's a function of needing to write a story every week.
Sure.
And so you're like, well, we haven't done a Beverly Crusher episode in a long time.
It's true. They probably would have started
to write one about hair.
Uhura
so they might have been like, let's write a Uhura episode. Let's write a Sulu.
There's only so many times Kirk and Spock can. Yeah, you're probably right.
They might have been like, let's throw a Chekhov episode in there. Fuck. You know,
they must have wanted to embody diversity and inclusion. Otherwise, because that's what we have. The writers or the creators of Star Trek.
What show are we talking about? Original?
Just the Star Trek in general, because nowadays it is very inclusive. It is very diverse. And
if Gene Roddenberry hadn't specifically wanted to make a point about diversity, which he clearly did, then Star Trek probably wouldn't have lasted for 50 years,
Right.
That seems right. Shall we get back into this episode?
Yes.
Now Rafi is on the bridge and the navigator hologram is at the helm, and she's talking to him like it's Rios. So she's sort of, and then eventually figures out, oh, fuck, you're not Rios. You're the goddamn hologram. But it takes her a while to figure it out.
Can we talk about this for a second? Because the navigator okay, here's what you need to know about the holograms, man. All of the holograms that look like Rios, it's the same actor playing all of the holograms, have wildly different accents.
Yes.
And the one that Rafi is talking to when she comes onto the bridge is the Irish one.
and she doesn't notice.
Somehow doesn't.
She's Scottish, right?
Does not.
Oh, right, Irish, right?
No, the Scottish one is later. It's the Irish one.
Is the engineer,
and she does not even seem to notice that he sounds like the Lucky Charms character.
Yeah,
and he sounds like a leprechaun, and she has like a full-on conversation with him before she realizes, oh, you're not the real Rios. Where's the real Rios? And he's
the real Rios.
And he's like,
accent?
And he's like, follow me, Rainbow, to me, Lucky Charms, and you'll find the real Rios. Like, that's how crazy it is.
Well, Rafi is in a haze.
She is in a drug-induced haze.
She's been drinking and smoking.
Yes. Well, she's also a computer hacker person. She can get things on the computer. So yeah, I'm pro Rafi.
Rafi's great. So let me just break the holograms down for you real quick, man, because we're gonna meet all of them.
Ooh,
one of them is Irish, one of them is British, one of them is Scottish, one of them is gay, and one of them is Spanish.
I love how gay is an accent.
He's not just gay, he's like weird. But we'll get to that.
He's the hospitality hologram.
Okay.
So the Irish one tells Rafi, that because she's like, he freaked out when he saw that girl. And
Soji.
Yeah. And he's like, oh, her name is Jana. And Rafi's like, no, her name is not Jana. Her name is Sochi. And the hologram's like, nah, I don't know about that. Boop, boop. And then he like boops out. Oh, but then
they have a conversation about the star system.
Yep.
So she talks about, she has this like drawing that all the where was the drawing from? Was it the Romulans that were drawing it?
She got it off the Romulans on the Borg ship. The XBs who were Romulans.
All the people in the crazy in the cuckoo's nest in the room. They were all drawing the same shape of all these circles together.
It's like in the Cthulhu game.
You know what this is? And the navigator's like, well, it looks like an octenary system, which is an 8-star system. So she's like, was that very common? He's like, it wouldn't happen naturally. It would have to be created by, or does he tell her that, or does the Scottish guy tell her? At some point in time, somebody tells her.
No, she doesn't learn that part until later. She's like, what is this? And he's like, it looks like an octenary, which is 8 stars all sort of orbiting around each other. And he's like, but that's not even a real thing, because there's some like Romulan myths about this kind of shit, but no one's ever like actually seen one. No one actually thinks it's real, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, okay, well, fine. And then we go back to Narissa.
The Borg cube.
Back to the cube. And Narissa's like, she's walking around the crime scene where Elnor and Seven have killed all those motherfuckers. And she's like, these people, some of these people got killed by phasers. So that's not Elnor, because Elnor chops people's heads off. We know this. Yep. So if there's phasers involved, somebody else must be helping him. And I bet I know who it is. Because she finds the chip.
Oh yeah. She finds the little chip.
And she's like
Rangers.
I know who
it is. I know which one.
Then we see Elnor and Seven, and they go into the Queen cell, which we've seen before, where the teleporter was that Picard used to take Soji to Riker and Troy.
And Seven knows how to use it.
And she does, because she's a Borg, right? Because right before Hugh died, Hugh told him, you need a Borg to help
activate
him.
Yeah.
So he's got Seven on his side. So they go into the Queen cell, and she's like doing a bunch of shit, and she's like doing a bunch of like it's all hologrammy, swipey
computer stuff.
Minority Report,
yeah, where you like hold your hand up and swipe it. She's doing a bunch of that.
Throw things off.
Are you looking forward to interfacing with like our computers in the future like that, or
love to swipe stuff? That seems so cool to me.
You want to Fruit Ninja everything.
I want to look at stuff and be like, boop boop, swipe, just with my hand.
Oh, have you heard about the new Spider-Man ride that's coming to Disneyland?
No.
Where it's going to be like a 3D shooting game, but instead of like having a gun, you just shoot your hand out.
Oh yeah,
webs.
Like webs.
Apparently they have. Apparently they already have that at in Florida.
What's going to keep people from shooting their penises? Like, I know I'm supposed to shoot my hand, but here you go.
They're not sick people. They're good. Only people like you would think I'll whip my penis out and fling out that. That doesn't cross most people's minds when they're at Disneyland.
In a world where I have so many dirty-minded friends, it's weird how you are somehow the dirtiest.
Rising to the top.
Rising. Past tense. Risen.
Has risen.
has risen.
Yeah. What did you guys not think about that? Was that just me?
I mean, you literally sent us a group text the other day about how we should be getting blowjobs while we're recording the podcast.
That would be a really
I mean, the logistics of what you were suggesting were unclear.
I'm a high in the sky thinker,
talking,
you know.
Who's talking on the podcast if we're all blowing each other?
We're not blowing each other.
Yeah, I wasn't sure.
We're not blowing each
all
other.
Gonna have something there to blow us all individually, or was one gonna do one at a time? Do we get a turn? We gonna take turns? It was unclear what the plan was.
So unclear.
I would have left it to someone else to figure out the little details. I just
so you're a big picture guy.
Yeah, big picture.
The details are for the little people.
Yeah. Well, no,
Jake's the producer of Warp. It's his job.
I was not planning on giving any blowjobs myself, and I wasn't going to ask it of you guys either. I definitely was not going to ask it of you guys. You know, yeah, that was.
Well, you think we're not going to be very good at it? Is that your problem?
I know. Am I supposed to be offended by this?
I
don't know.
Matt is probably a very great blowjobber.
Oh, dare you. What kind of gay bullshit is that?
This is.
How do you know I'm not good at it?
I bet you are not, Sean, because you would not be into it.
What I love about this is watching Min just like dig himself deeper and deeper into a hole that he cannot escape.
Yeah. I think you're a great blowjobber, Matt.
Well, this is the worst conversation we've had in 109 episodes of this show. I've managed to gross myself out, which I didn't think was possible.
We'll have to leave it to Jake.
7 of 9 is on the board cube.
Just cut it all out, Jake. Cut it all. Cut it all. The last 15 minutes can just go.
And then she does something, and all of a sudden the Borg cube starts to rebuild itself.
Oh my God. What? Oh my God. 709 is going to be on a rampage. Wait, but they got to end it in like 2 more episodes. What the hell?
Yeah. So they go into the Queen cell, and Seven's like, I'm going to steal this cube. And Elnor's like, I have a bunch of questions. She's like, you can ask me your questions, or you can stand there while I steal the cube.
Wow, that's crazy. That's good. I love it. Then what? They
Seven starts to like wake up the cube. Like she turns the power on.
Yeah, she turns.
Because all this time, the cube has been sort of like shut down. And Seven turns it on. So like all the lights come on, alarms start going off.
Yeah.
Narissa the Romulan is like, oh shit, what's happening right now? And they're like, the Borg cube is coming back online. And she's like, that's not good. We should kill all the Borgs on this ship. Because there aren't just the XBs who are the like de-Borgified people who are floating around on the ship. There are like thousands and thousands of real Borg who have been in sort of stasis, in lockdown this entire time. And she's like, we have to kill all these motherfuckers. How are we going to kill all these Borgs? And one of her Romulan dudes is like, well, we could just eject them all into space. And she's like, that's an excellent idea. You're promoted.
Great idea. Let's do that.
You're promoted. We surprisingly have new openings available.
And meanwhile, we see that because Seven has like reactivated the Borg cube, it's starting to repair itself. So you see all these little like insecty looking bots running around on the outside of the ship.
Outside.
putting it all back together. So you see that the cube is like starting to become a cube again. Then we got back to Picard and Soji having breakfast together
in the vineyard,
Yes.
at the big commercial.
No,
they're in
it's just
the kitchen of the ship. Yeah,
Okay.
the galley.
and they have this whole scene is sort of a character scene.
Yeah.
She's eating eggs and he's eating oatmeal or something. And they have a conversation about Data. Because she's like, my past is all fiction. I don't have a past. I don't have a history. And he's like, you do have a history. You just don't know what it is. And she's like, you mean Data? And he's like, yeah, Data. Data's your past. Data is your father. He's your history. And she's like, okay, fine. Tell me about Data. And he's like, well, Data was smart and curious
And
he
compassionate.
wanted to be human, and he made us laugh, but never when
except for when he was trying to make us laugh.
Because he was terrible at telling jokes, and like, so he gives her a little bit of like, this is what Data was like. And she's like, what do you think? And she's like, did you love him? And Picard's like, yes, I did. I loved him. I'm not very good. He's like, I'm not very good. I'm not very good at like expressing love, but yes, I love Data.
Did you tear up there, Matt?
No.
Oh, okay. Because the last episode, you had a number of tear-jerking moments.
I tear up a little bit in this scene, but I can't remember exactly where it was. But
okay.
She says to him, what do you think Data would say about you? And he's like, I don't know. Data's dead. And she's like, well, imagine he's alive and you died. What would he say about you? Picard's like, well, I hope that he would say that I was supportive and that I believed in him and that I celebrated him when he was successful and I gave him good advice when he was not successful, and that I was a good friend. Basically, that's what Picard says. Sean, is there anything I didn't say?
Yeah, that sounds about right. That's what I can remember.
Yeah. And then she's like, well, he loved you. And Picard looks at her because Picard's like, Then we see Rafi and the engineering.
It's funny that they made this the engineering hologram Scottish.
Yes.
I like that.
So she goes down. She goes down to talk to the engineering hologram. She's basically this episode has a weird like tone shifts. Like it's all over the place. Like it's really serious and then it's really sweet and then it's really funny. And Rafi's whole thing is really like the comedy storyline. Yeah. No, she gets
the
like
funny
the
part of
comedy
it.
storyline in this episode.
Yeah,
she goes
really funny scene is coming up.
She goes down to the engineering room to talk to and she's looking for Rios, but she finds the hologram, and the hologram is Scottish, like James Doohan in old show Scottish, like insanely Scottish, embarrassingly bad
Scottish accent. Yeah,
she's like, is there such a thing
about this is where she learns about the octenary. The only way you'd be able to make an octenary system is to actually drag a star into it. Like it wouldn't happen naturally.
Right. It must be artificial because there's no way that 8 stars could be in a system lined up like that. Well, then she goes to have a drink. She's like, this sucks. She goes back to her quarters. She orders a drink from the replicator. The replicator won't give it to her. She orders another drink from the replicator.
The hospitality.
Then the
parental controls.
The gay
weird, essentially, yes.
Hospitality program shows up, and he's like, "You told me not to let you have any drinks, so the replicator isn't giving you any drinks." And she's like, no, disable. And he's like, I can't disable because you overrode all of the disabled.
Disables as well. Oh,
he's also a weird, like, close talker. Like, the gay hospitality program likes to get right up in people's faces to the point where they, like, back away.
Back up.
Yeah. It was like Seinfeld, where Seinfeld was dating the close talker.
Yeah.
Rios is in his quarters. He's drunk.
Yep.
And he's sort of sitting on the floor, feeling sorry for himself. This is when I wrote, Sean, hot Mandy Patinkin.
Younger.
Yeah, he does look like.
I think that the guy who plays Rios looks like a young, hot Mandy Patinkin. Like Sunday in the Park with George era Mandy Patinkin.
Yep.
It like 20%. If you took Mandy Patinkin in 1984 and made him 20% hotter, he would look exactly like this guy,
Captain Rios.
Rios. He's feeling sorry for himself. He goes over to his like trunk where he keeps all of his shit, and he opens it up, and his old uniform is in there. And he like
Starfleet uniform.
Throws that aside. Then he pulls out a cigar box and he looks in the cigar box, and there's like a picture of him as a young man and an older man who's like the captain. It's him and his old.
We've talked about the captain, right? What happened to the captain?
Who died?
Way back earlier, he told the story of something horrible happened with his captain, and that's why he dropped out of Starfleet. And then he finds a little drawing, and it's him and someone who looks exactly like Soji, which is why he freaked out. Him and Soji, which is why he looked freaked out when he saw Soji when they beamed up at the beginning of the episode.
So is that a third daughter, or is that something else? We'll find out.
We're going to find out. So now we go back to the board cube with Seven and Elnor, and they're trying to figure out what they're gonna do, and this is where she says, well, I could plug in and sort of take over, turn on all of the Borg that are on board here, and have them attack all of the Romulans. And he's like, yeah, do that. Why don't you do that? He's like, well, the problem is, if I do that, they're going to want to keep going. And I don't know that I would be able to stop them. And the other problem is, I don't know that I would want to stop. And so she's sort of worried about what's going to happen if she decides to plug in.
Oh, interesting. Dilemmas.
Now we're to Rafi and the holograms.
Okay. Did you write down Rafi and the holograms? Because I wrote down Rafi and the holograms. That's literally what my note says. Rafi and the holograms. Like Jem and the holograms.
Jem and the holograms. Yeah, exactly. Yep. That was exactly what I thought when I wrote it down, too.
All right. Well, good job. I also wrote truly outrageous, which is a Jem and the holograms joke. Right? They were truly outrageous. Everybody? Anybody?
I didn't really watch Jem and the holograms.
I know I watched some of it. I didn't watch it all that much. So.
Their tagline was truly outrageous.
Oh, was it? I don't know.
I'll take your word for it.
Well, never mind. Somebody out there will hear that.
Absolutely.
Think that was super funny.
That will connect with a lot of people.
So Rafi is in Picard's chateau office, and she's got all of the holograms in front of her.
Yep.
There are 5 of them because she's figured out that collectively they know what's going on with Rios. Because earlier, we didn't talk about this, but earlier she was talking to one of the holograms, and he explained to her that all of the holograms are based on Rios's personality. So they all have some.
When he took over the ship.
When he took over the ship, they used his personality to build the holograms. So all of the holograms. He
never went back and changed it.
All of the holograms look like him, but they also have some part of him in them. But they're also all completely different. One is British, one is Scottish, one is Irish, one is gay, one is Spanish, right?
Yeah. Sort of the bad boy of the boy band.
He's he is absolutely the bad boy. He's like got his feet up on the coffee table. He clearly doesn't give a shit about.
He's got long hair. Like he looks sort of like Jason Momoa.
Sure.
Yeah, he does a little bit.
But then Rios is Rios not Spanish? Is what is his? What's he playing?
He's supposed to be Spanish, or at least have some kind of Latino accent.
Gotcha. But this one is just pushed even more.
Yeah. Like
gotcha. He speaks in Spanish.
Mm.
So she's got these 5 idiot holograms in front of her, and she's like, dudes. I need you to tell me what's going on with Rios because he's locked himself in his room. He's acting super weird ever since he saw Soji. But they can't tell her because their memories are not like complete. They don't have complete access to his memory. So they're only able to remember little bits and pieces. And whenever they remember something, Ben, it's actually a really cool effect. Whenever they remember something, their eyes do a little like sort of
flutter with light,
scanning. Yeah, like a little like scanny like special effect. Like they're searching their databases. It's a cool little effect. Yeah. And they're like, well, we don't know really what happened, but it has something to do with the Ibn Majid, which is his old ship, and
that was the ship he was on,
and Captain Vandermeer, which is the captain that he had before. And she's like, "Okay, is that all you can tell me?" And they're like, "Yeah, that's basically all we can tell you."
After that, it's Picard with Jurati, and Jurati wakes up from her coma, and Picard's like, we're going to Deep Space 12. You're going to turn yourself in for murdering Maddox. And she's like, yeah, okay, you're right. That's what I'm going to do.
How is Jurati taking all of this? Is she breaking down? Is she emotional? Is she pretty stoic?
No, she takes it. She's like, yep, okay. That's what I'm going to do.
She's very upset. I mean, she's very emotional. Alison Pill is great in this episode, I thought. She regrets her actions, and it's clear from I mean, she's very good in this scene because Picard's like, what the fuck? Like, you know. By the way, Sean, did you catch the little... This episode has a lot of Easter eggs in it. Did you catch the little, like, reference to Viridium? She says I was infected with Viridium, which is the same thing. A Viridium patch is what Spock slaps onto Kirk's shoulder, but in Star Trek 6 before he her to the Klingons for the trial. He like slaps him on the shoulder and puts a thing on him.
That's so they can track him.
Viridium is the name of the thing. But anyway, Picard is like, look, you killed Bruce Maddox. Everyone thinks you are a spy. She's like, I'm not a spy. Commodore O came and mind melded with me and infected me with all of these like horrible images, which are the same images that we saw at the beginning of this episode and also back, 4 or 5 episodes ago when they first met. And it's like, oh, so that's why you did that. She's like, I'm so sorry. I feel really bad about what I did. And she's like, but they think that they're trying to save the world. And Picard's like, who do they think they're trying to save the galaxy from? And she's like, and then Soji comes in and she's like, they're trying to save them from me, from Seb Cheneb, the Destroyer, which we've heard that name before, Seb Cheneb.
That's what Ramda called her.
Yeah,
back on the board cue.
Right. So now we get a scene that crosscuts back and forth. So I'm just gonna do one, and I'm not gonna try and go back and forth because
just do one and do the other
really fast. But you get a scene with Raffi and Rios in Rios's quarters. So Raffi goes in to see Rios, and he's like sitting on his bed, looking at his shit, feeling sorry for himself. And he's listening to Billie Holiday on a vinyl, like on a turntable.
Oh, like a real record.
Because they've made it's funny. There's like, it's sort of established canon in Star Trek that people in Star Trek love 20th century music. They all do. Like Riker loves jazz and they love music from 400 years earlier.
Right.
So Raffi goes in and she's like, she looks at the turntable and she's like, are you listening to your Walkman? Because they're making a little joke that she doesn't know. She doesn't know the difference between a turntable and a Walkman. They're both so old timey.
Yeah.
It's
millennial.
It's a dumb little joke, but it's funny. It's cute. I thought it was cute. So anyway, she sits down next to Rios and she's like, look, I've already talked to all the holograms and they've told me blah, blah, blah. So you might as well just fucking tell me what happened to you.
Tell me what happened.
Just tell me the story. And he's like, fine. I was on the ship with Captain Vandermeer. We went out to respond to a distress call. We picked up a ship. It was a man. It was an older man and a younger woman. And the younger woman looked exactly like Soji. And that's why
Jana looked just like
that's
Soji.
why I freaked out when I saw her when she beamed up. And the four of us, me and the captain and this guy and Jana, we went to have dinner because we beamed him onto our ship. And while we were having dinner, the Captain Vandermeer, freaked out and murdered both the ambassador, who I think his name was Beautiful Flower. And
Beautiful Flower, yes.
He's like, he just freaked out.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Beautiful Flower was his name.
Yep.
He's like, Vandermeer just killed them both for no reason. And I tried to like talk to him, and before I could, Captain Vandermeer stuck the phaser in his mouth and
killed himself.
And he's like, that's why I've been so like traumatized and broken. There's a reason this episode is called Broken Pieces, and it's because it's about people being like broken, emotionally broken.
Yeah.
So he's like, that's why I've been troubled all of these years. It's because my captain killed two people and then killed himself right in front of me. And I covered it up because it was an order from Starfleet. That's the other thing he tells her.
It was an order from Starfleet to kill those two people, and it was what they called a black flag order. If they didn't do it, then the Starfleet would destroy the ship that they were on and kill everybody on board.
Right.
That's what the captain tells him why he killed those two people. But then he got guilty and killed himself.
Yeah.
And then that fucked up Rios for the time being till now.
Right.
Well, and also the cover up, because Rios is like, I beamed out the bodies and I covered it all up and I made it look like Captain Vandermeer, who was like essentially my second father, my mentor. I made it look like he killed himself for no reason. rather than let the truth come out. And then he's like, 6 months later, I got kicked out of Starfleet because I was having mental and emotional problems. And it's like, yeah, well, yeah, that makes sense. You would be having mental and emotional problems. So that's the story. That's the backstory.
So he tells that to Rafi.
Right.
Wow.
Meanwhile, Soji and Dr. Jurati are having a conversation because Soji is everything that Dr. Jurati has always dreamed of. You know what I mean? Like, she's always dreamed of this perfect
flesh and blood synthetic.
A flesh and blood synthetic. So Jurati is talking to Soji and she's like, do you sleep? And so she's like, yeah,
she goes,
dope, I sleep.
When I get tired.
She's like, do you eat? And she's like, yeah, I eat when I'm hungry.
When I'm hungry.
Like, do you drink? And she's like, yeah, when I'm thirsty. And Dr. Jurati is like blown away by
oh my God.
Because this is the vision. This is the vision that Bruce Maddox always had. Because even Data didn't sleep, didn't eat, didn't drink. Like, Data was a robot on some level. But Soji is like a person. And Soji then says to her, after Jurati's asked her all these questions, Soji's like, so have I convinced you? Am I a person? Am I as real as you are? And Jurati's like, she's like, you're a work of art. And so she's like, I don't want to be a work of art.
I just want to be me.
I want to be a person. Yeah. Like, do you think of me as a person? And Soji's like, you came out here to kill me, right? Commodore O told you to kill Bruce Maddox, which she did, and to kill me. Are you going to try and kill me? And then and is actually a pretty good moment because Soji's like, by the way, if you tried to kill me, I would not allow that to happen.
Yes, that's
Soji's a fucking badass android, superpowered. And then Jurati's like, now that I've met you, I've had a change of my heart. But that sounded funny, but it wasn't funny. Like, it was.
Yeah, no, it was meant to like. Sure. I would never kill you because you're like everything I've always wanted something like you to exist in this world.
Yeah,
I would
she's
never
like,
destroy
I would
you.
Never. Now that I know, I would never do that.
But it almost feels like she's saying that in a like, oh, I want to study you way more than like, oh, I recognize you for being a person. It seems like she wants to examine her.
Yeah, I mean that's interesting. The way that Alison Pill plays it makes it seem like she's being more sincere and just being like, I've learned my lesson and now I just want to help you. But maybe, I mean, you're right. That is an interesting way of looking at it.
You would think that she would want to study her. But yeah,
that could be a possible twist later on. Sure. Yeah.
I want a show where everyone is happy.
No.
And I would like 10 episodes where Patrick Stewart and Riker and Troy and Data and Worf and Geordi
Beverly
just hang out, and Beverly hang out on Riker's planet and eat pizza. Different kinds of pizza.
That sounds amazing.
And every episode, it's a different kind of pizza. Like, that's the most. I want that to be the most dramatic thing that happens every week. is what kind of pizza will it be? Will it be Hawaiian? And the cliffhanger will be when Riker pulls the pizza out of the oven. Oh, it's vegetarian this week, everybody. And everyone goes, yay!
And they do like 10 minutes of hugging before the at the beginning.
Before and 10 minutes after of just hugging and loving each other. That's what I want.
That is very wholesome. I think people were really into that. At least for 10 episodes.
I don't want to know anybody
I'm on board.
who doesn't like that idea.
Yeah. So is there any more in the Girardi Soji scene?
No, now we're back to Narissa murdering motherfuckers on the Borg ship.
Fucking Narissa.
She's like, we have to kill all these Borgs. She goes into the Borg room and just starts murdering.
The XB Borg, the XBs.
She kills them all.
Attack her.
No, that happens later. Where they catch her. That happens later.
Yeah, I would think if I was Narissa, I would want to get on a ship and get out of there because that's a Borg cube and she's like a tiny ant. She murders, she's like killing all these X-Borgs. Then we cut back to 7 in the Queen cell and she's like, well, I guess I'm going to have to fucking reborn. and
it's pretty. She plugs in.
The like tubes come and they like stick themselves into her spine, into the back of her spine, and they like slam in. It's really good. It's really dramatic and sad because if you know her story, it's incredibly sad to see her have to do that again. Like, is she reluctant to, or is yes. When she went down to Bajazil and had her final confrontation there, the way you guys were telling the story, it almost seemed like 7 has like thrown a little bit of humanity aside, and she's just like her eyes are on the prize or something. I understand why you would think that because you don't know her. Yeah, I haven't watched it. And you don't know her character from Voyager, but that's true. Her voyage from being this like disconnected Borg into being a human is a huge part of the story arc of Voyager. So to see her voluntarily choose to go back, and it would be like if a slave in like Civil War times, like a plantation slave, escaped, and then intentionally chose to go back. In order to rescue other people. Like that's a huge sacrifice. Huge sacrifice. Gotcha. So she does, and the things plug into her back, sort of Matrix style. And then her eyes turn black. It's a great shot. It's a great close-up on Jerry Ryan. Her eyes turn black, and then they turn green. And then she goes, in her old-timey, like, synthesized voice, she goes, "We are bored." Fuck. Like, she woke up and bored.
Cut to Rizzo and her Romulan pal, and you start to see all of the Borg in the cube. There's hundreds of them, just start lighting up. Wake it up, and they hear them all saying, "We are Borg." We are Borg. They all start to wake up, and then
you gotta know when to fold them.
It's like thousands.
Pushes the button,
all waking up at the same time.
Pushes the button. And they all get sucked out into space.
All of the Borgs get sucked out into space.
Yep.
Oh. Yep. But are Borg's machine? Do they need to breathe? Oh, I imagine so.
They do need to breathe because they have organic.
Parts.
They can't live without the organic.
They can't live without the organic parts. So yeah, earlier she was like, "How do we get rid of them?" And her sidekick was like, "We shoot them out into space," and they did.
That's what they do.
So it was a real
it was so. Yeah.
It was a real blue ball.
No,
because you're like,
I was like,
oh yeah,
the Borg kick some ass, and then
some ass.
Rip.
And then bloop, they're all dead. Like
all dead. Fuck. That sucks.
Was that all of the rest of the Borgs that they ejected, or you assume that there are more Borgs?
Just on that.
Well, it's all the ones we've seen anyway. So
dead.
But
all dead.
Is that where she gets attacked by the XBs again?
The level of blue balls I felt in that moment. I was so psyched when she was like, "We are Borg."
Yeah.
And then 30 seconds later, it's over. And it's just like, what?
Yeah.
Why didn't you
spend
more time on her becoming the new Borg queen? Like that could have been a amazing storyline. You know what I mean?
Sometimes you hit that whammy.
Everyone's back on. This is a scene that I called "Putting It Together" in honor of Stephen Sondheim's brilliant song "Putting It Together," because now we get a scene where everybody on the La Sirena finally comes together and talks out everything that's been going on,
and they figure it out.
So they all sit down and they finally tell each other the story, and each of them has some of the story, but none of them has all of it. And they all finally tell each other, here's what's going on. So Rafi's like, tens of thousands of years ago, there was a species that was so powerful that it could take 8 stars and put them all in a line and put a planet right at the center of them as a warning for the rest of us. And the warning was all about the dangers of synthetic life. And ever since then, the Romulans have created this thing called the Jotvange. And their whole thing is to stop this horrible catastrophe from happening. And that's why they've done all of these horrible things all over the years. And meanwhile, they're the ones who caused the disaster on Mars. The Romulans were secretly behind the disaster on Mars.
Of course.
And everyone, I'm saying this all to you in a monologue, but in the show, it's all spread out among all of the different people talking at the same time. But they're all just like, okay, well, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So now they're all on the same page. And they're like, fine. Now we know, finally, with 2 episodes left, we know what's going on. Let's get the fuck going. Soji freaks out because she's like, fuck, I'm unhappy. I can't stand Soji. She's the fly in the ointment, like every time. Last week, this week, she's awful. Hate her.
It's the same actor playing Soji as played her sister, right? Her twin.
Yeah. And she's great. She was a lot better. Anyway, Soji's like, I have to go. She goes up to the bridge. She takes over the ship. She starts flying them away. Rios is like, hey, bitch.
It's my ship.
What are we doing?
My ship. What are you doing? She's like, I'm taking the ship. But he's like, no, you're not. And then he recites a lullaby in
lullaby,
Spanish, and it causes the whole ship to shut down. It's like a code. It's like a code word.
Yeah.
And then he's like, and the whole ship shuts down. And he's like, you can't steal this ship from me. And she's like, but I want to. And he's like, no, but I don't care what you want because I work for him. Thumb over to Jean-Luc.
JL.
Jean-Luc's like, well, maybe we should try it her way.
We've tried it your way. We've tried it my way. Let her do it her way.
That's interesting.
And then Soji is like, hey, there's a transwarp corridor, which is there's a lot of Easter eggs in this episode. She's like, there's a transwarp corridor that we can use to skip to the planet where we think that all of the
her birthplace.
And she's like, we can use this transwarp corridor, which is a Borg thing from Voyager. Mm-hmm. And they're like, okay, well, maybe. And Picard's like, we should do it. And then Picard sits down in the captain's chair.
The captain's chair.
And pulls up the like hologrammy, like console-y stuff that Rios uses to fly the ship. And he's like, let's go. And then he like fiddles around with it for a second. And then he looks over at Rios and he's like, actually, I don't know how any of this works.
Yeah.
I like that. That's a good touch.
So Rios is like, okay, Jean-Luc, get out of the chair. Let the captain like run shit, you know?
And they do all this stuff and they warp out and they're going to the planet. Then we cut back to the Borg cube and Narissa this is where she gets attacked. Is this right?
It is right.
Matt?
Yes, it is right.
I don't remember the circumstances.
Let me do 3 quick nerdy Easter eggs.
Mm-hmm.
When Soji tries to take over the ship and then fails, Rios says to her, you wanted to go into a Borg transwarp. Did you even think about the chronotones, the gravimetric shear? Did you try and figure out an SIF? Like, these are callbacks to like old school Star Trek things where he calls her out on
the
like
chronotons.
He's like, we would have died in there because you didn't know what we were doing. And I'm sorry. I just thought that was funny, like little old school Easter egg.
Technobabble.
And then at the end, she says to him, please take me home. And it's really sweet. And he's like, okay, I'll take you home. So then they're flying off to where the
transwarp coil is.
Then we got back to the Borg cube. Mean Narissa is walking around. She gets attacked by the XBs, right? The XBs attack her, Sean.
Yep. And she gets she looks like she's gonna get killed, and then you sort of see her and then they flash to outside, and a bunch of ships show up, and then they flash back in, and you see her beam out.
Yeah.
And she's sort of being overwhelmed by the XBs. Then all the ships take off. Boom, boom, boom. So all the Romulans have left the Borg cube and are off to this planet to go kill the synths.
Yeah. So now the Borg cube is empty.
Activated.
Empty, except
empty. Yeah.
So we cut back to 7. 7 is in the queen cell. And she goes, the cube is ours. Jake, put some Borg sound on that.
Do not do that, Jake. You are not required to do that. Cancel order.
He is absolutely required to do that. She's like, the cube is ours. And you should also put it on when she says, we are Borg. So go back to the episode and find that moment and do it.
We are Borg. Yep. And
don't they have to go get some more Borg?
Poor sweet Elnor is standing there and he's like, so are you what? Going to assimilate me? And Seven's like, no, Annika has work to do. Annika means Seven's like non-Borg
real name.
And then she detaches like from the.
Yeah, she unhooks herself from the cube.
They go all the things Matrix style.
But you get the sense that she is still connected to the Borg ship.
No,
yeah.
Yes. Then she's like, she's like, all right, let's go. I got problems to figure out.
Yeah. Then they'll flash to the La Sirena, and they get to the warped coil, and they do the thing to open it up. They shoot through it, and then Narek's ship shoots through it too.
Oh, he was following them all along.
Yep, or he found them somehow. And that's the end of the show. That's the end of the episode. That was the last one.
I have a couple more. I have a couple of things to say about that last scene with Picard and Rios. So Picard and Rios.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. They have their conversation.
Are alone on the bridge, and Picard is talking about how he remembers when he was an ensign, and he was all alone on the bridge of the ship that he was working on, and he felt like he was the only person in the galaxy. Like, just being alone on the bridge, flying through space, was very emotional for him. Then he tells Rios, I knew Captain Vandermeer. Captain Vandermeer being the person that Rios worked for, who killed himself. He's like, I knew Captain Vandermeer. I didn't know him well, but I had met him a couple of times. And the reason I knew him is because he was the first officer back in the day for a friend of mine who I knew back at the academy. Sean, did you catch this reference?
I mean, I didn't. The name, I don't know. I don't know the reference to the name.
Picard says, your friend, Captain Vandermeer, used to be the first officer on the ship of my friend, who I was in the academy with, named Marta Batanides. Marta Batanides is a callback to an episode called Tapestry, where Picard dies and goes back in time and meets Q. And Q gives him the opportunity to like change his life. So Picard is like, well, I'm going to change my life. And I won't do this thing that got me in trouble when I was back.
Why he's got a fake heart.
It's the reason he has a fake heart, right? Mm-hmm. So the girl in that episode, who is the girl that Picard knew when he was young, that was Marta Martini. That was a huge callback.
Wow.
That's cool.
That was a deep cut to an old school episode.
Well, that's a big episode too. Like that's a classic Next Generation episode.
So Picard's like, I knew her, and she was your friend's captain. Then Picard gets to give a very classically Picardy speech. Because Rios is like, why are we even doing this? This sucks. And Picard gets to give this great speech. I mean, Patrick Stewart, what a fucking superstar, you know?
So great.
He gets to give this great speech where he's like, we have to be better than this. We can't let what's happened define us. We have to be stronger and better and use our morals and our ethics. And it's great. I'm not doing a good job at all describing it, but go watch it. Go watch the last 5 minutes of this episode and watch Patrick Stewart break your heart because he's so good. And he makes you believe in a world that we do not live in right now.
Right.
Well, but that we can fight for.
Yeah. You have to fight for it. And that's kind of his point too, is that you have to fight for it.
It's not easy. You gotta fight.
You can't just hope for it. You have to fight for it. It's beautiful. This is a terrific episode. Terrific.
Yep.
Soji comes onto the bridge. She's like, we're here. And she pulls out the compass that Riker and
Kestra.
Troy's daughter, Kestra, gave her last week. She pulls out the compass and she holds it up. And it is pointing true north. So you know that they're going in the right direction.
I thought compasses worked on like a magnetic field. And what magnetic field is a ship giving off?
It's a metaphor.
Okay.
It's a metaphor.
Gotcha. Okay,
they're on the right track, man.
Yeah. Second star to the right and straight on till more.
Yep.
Exactly.
You got it.
Do you know that they quote that in Star Trek, man?
One of the movies, I think.
Yeah, it's 6. It's what Kirk says.
The end of 6.
The very end of 6.
Well, we'll get there eventually.
A couple of years, 2-3 years.
Not Sunday.
Someday.
No, I said someday.
Someday. Someday. Yes. Wow. Well, that was a lot that they packed into that episode. I cannot imagine 2 more episodes and they're going to wrap this up. Geez, they are going to have to squeeze in a lot, I feel.
And when they flew off, you saw another ship fly off.
It's Narek's
It's got to be Narek, right?
Yep.
I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be Narek's ship. So they're going to all get there well before the Romulans, but he's going to be there too. So which side is he going to choose? Is he going to choose Soji?
I don't care. I hope it's not. I hope it's not a twist. We really love each other story. Like he's been horrible to her. If this turns into a we really loved each other all along, like fuck that. That's you know what that tells me? That tells me there are no women on the writing staff of this television program.
And I cannot believe that they would allow that. I agree with you, Matt. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Well, we know that's not true because there have been women who have episodes. So
I'm just saying, I don't want. This should not be a love story about Soji and Narek.
I would agree with you absolutely. They should not. She should not forgive him no matter what he does.
There should not be any redemption for Narek.
Agree.
This storyline.
My question before we go: how many deep spaces are there? Do we know?
No, we don't.
Well, there's at least 12.
12? At least 12.
At least 12.
Follow-up question. What's happening on Deep Space 69, huh? Well, is there a porno out? Are you? Yes. Whatever your question is, Matt. Yes, I am. Is there a porn parody of Deep Space Nine called Deep Space 69 yet?
There is 100%.
Okay, I'm gonna go. I know what I'm doing with my night tonight, or my next 5 minutes.
It's very interracial.
Yeah, I hope so. And deep. Well, that's all the questions I have.
Well, on that note,
I mean, I just Googled how many deep space stations are there. Well, it depends on whether they're named or not, but at least 13. It seems like.
Ooh, I wouldn't want to be on the 13th one. They don't put in floor 13 for a reason.
Well, for NA, we're recording this on Friday the 13th.
Oh,
and we may
play the jingle.
We may never see each other again if we're...
Jacob, you put in, after I said Friday the 13th, put in some Friday the 13th kill, song.
Jingle are you talking about? That's never been a jingle.
He's just adding more.
That's the Friday the 13th movie.
Yeah, the theme song.
The Jason jingle.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Jason jingle. Well, we don't need to stretch it any longer, guys. We're doing very well on content
here.
What an episode, guys.
Sign us out, Matt.
Sign us out.
Oh, thank you so much for listening to Inside Picard, episode 8. You can also listen to Warped, the completely unnecessary Star Trek podcast, on all of your pod-catching apps. You can follow the show on Instagram at Warped the Podcast, on Twitter at Warped. Oh, shit.
What? Warped Track?
At Warped Track. You can follow me.
You're falling apart too, Matt.
I'm fine. How dare you? You can follow me at Host Warped. You can follow Min and our D&D and Call of Cthulhu live play podcasts at Wet Maynard. And you can follow us next week when we will be back for another episode of Inside Picard. Until